Oh man, how's NCR doing? Oh shit.
We're loaded up. NCR is good. We don't really go there because you said you were going down to, I guess, Boston. You're going to Boston a couple times a week across the
Yeah, I sneak up there for a workout twice a week just to.
I was there at NCR the other day. It's just empty. Everyone cleaned us out, so there's nothing to do there except GHD sit-ups and pull-ups.
Ring muscle ups.
That's true. We could do some ring muscle ups. We could have a good
about,
little gymnastics workout actually.
When I went there to meet up with Brendan the other day, I'm like, I should just rip 30 muscle ups for time right now.
Yeah.
How fit are you right now, PT?
I'm quarantine fit. I don't know, not that fit, man.
It's so funny the way it rolls.
Yeah, how fit are you?
I think I'm fitter than I've been in a while. I'm definitely not stronger. I'm probably the weakest I've ever been in my entire life, but I've been working out like on a schedule pretty consistently, which is good. I'm taking the noon almost every day with our gym. So
that's good.
I actually feel like I have been working out more than the last like couple months for sure. And
yeah,
it's good, but I love I think I saw one of the quotes that you made that you posted maybe on one of the other podcasts, 1,000 podcasts that you've been on, about like how people are just going to come out of the quarantine just like super fit.
Dude,
air squats and push-ups.
The amount of dumbbell work, like people are actually stretching now. Like they're crushing their abs. Like, yeah, people are going to be fucking super fit.
Now I do all of PT's ab finishers and my stomach is lit up.
Yeah, man, because it's also you just like, because people are they're just like, I got nothing to do. Like some of our members, because some of our coaches are posting extra work. Like some of our members are just like working out like psychopaths.
Yeah. That's
cool.
one of the things that we were talking about originally, and when we were like, "Okay, how much are we going to program? You know, are we going to program all the extra work that we've been doing?" And like, no, let's just do one workout a day. You know, and keep it simple. And then we're like, you know what?
No.
Some of our members are absolute maniacs, and they just want to work out all day long, and they're at home. So let's give them more stuff to do. Why not?
Feed it to them.
Yeah. James, thanks for being on the podcast with us.
It is a pleasure to be here.
Yeah,
thank you guys for having me.
Pete decided to go on an absolute rampage and revived the podcast. He's got one scheduled every day for 3 weeks.
I think that's great. That's how you do it, man.
May as well just bust them out.
We've been.
You guys should call yours the best hour of their day,
eh?
Hey. We had Ackerman on the other day, though.
What did he talk about?
His book.
Yeah, we talked about his book, Best Hour of Their Day.
Oh, cool.
We let him.
That makes sense.
Let him plug his book a little bit.
Yeah,
that makes sense. He has stories, though.
He's got a lot of stories.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually some of the stories that he told. You're part of them.
Yeah, I mean, I've known Jason for a really long time. I mean, pretty much since I started competing in CrossFit, I've known Jason. And, you know, when I first met Austin back in 2009, 2010, I knew Jason. So it's cool.
Were you at the first CrossFit competition other than the games?
So they did one that at Albany, which was called it was like the original Beast of the East or something like that. I did not go to that one, but I did go to the first sectionals that they held out there.
Yeah.
That was in the parking lot in Albany. And then one year they had them out there. I remember that's before the people thought that you could screw a rig into the ground. And I remember we were doing and so the rig, half the people on the left side would pull up, and the other, it was like doing pull-ups on a fucking pirate ship. And so it would go and it would jerk you forward. And then when they would go down to the bottom of their pull-up, it would swing back and it would just smash you in the face. It was, I miss stuff like that. You know, it was just it sucked so bad, but it was so fun at the time. I think that's good. That should be the next.
That was 2009, right?
Yeah. Well, the pirate ship rig was 2010, I think.
Oh.
Maybe that was. Yeah. And then, 2009, I forgot what the rig was like then. I do remember though, in 2009, I did the whole weekend competition in boxers and shorts. No, that's that was when you didn't wear compression back then, man. I had, I think they were elephants, some random J. Crew graphic design boxers.
Oh my God. What kind
Austin
of shoes were you got?
wore those back then.
Vans slip-on shoes, man.
Oh my God.
Unreal.
That's
Flat
the
bottom.
best.
Unreal.
Yeah, I
So-
had tons of pairs of those.
Let me introduce you real quick, James.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's fine. I love that. I think it's great to start with a story of like, hey, this guy's an absolute OG. First of all,
Just old. That's it. No
You're not
gangster.
that
He's
old.
just old.
not an original gangster. James Hobart, man, from Boston. Level 1 Flowmaster, level 2 Flowmaster, level 4 coach. Right, been doing CrossFit since probably like 2008, 2009.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like I started really doing it then, but I
Yeah.
found out about it early 2007. But I was doing it, but I wasn't doing it the way it was supposed to be done.
Yeah, like most people are when they start.
Yeah.
And you have a super impressive, obviously, like coaching career, going from level 1 to eventually owning your own affiliate now across the Boston with the One Nation brand with Austin and Spencer and them. You have an incredible competition career and resume there. One of the most decorated team athletes of all time. As said, some people have said the greatest team athlete of all time in CrossFit sense. It's really cool. I mean, we're friends now. We chat all the time, and we bust each other's balls. But you're one of the reasons why I wanted to get on staff originally. And I know I've told you that before, but I think it's cool to people to know that we're the same age. And when you gave me my level 1, and I remember seeing you and Austin up there giving the deadlift lecture and just like having fun and just, sounding smart and knowing movement, but also keeping the crowd engaged and laughing. I was like, those guys know what they're doing. That's what I want to do. I like that. So it's awesome to have you on the podcast, dude.
Oh, it's great to be here with you guys. And I'm very good. Thank you for the nice introduction.
Yeah, no problem. But we want to go like, I feel like we could talk for like 2 hours together about all the stuff that's going on from like an affiliate standpoint.
Where do you have to be, James? You gotta be anywhere? You gotta on a timeline here?
No, man, let me check. I think I got the whole day cleared out for you boys. I was gonna rearrange my basement today. I chiseled on some work yesterday. Worked late last night. So I'm ready to just, if anyone wants to lose 2 hours of their life and we want to set them up for success in that way, let's do it.
Okay, that's good to know.
Let's just start from the start, man. Give us a little, where you started, how you started, why you started, and what brought you from athlete to coach.
Well, all right. So I'll give you the not short version of this.
Deal.
So I got into CrossFit, and I think I've said this part of the story a lot. I got into CrossFit because a friend of mine, someone who became my friend, this fellow Mike Bazillion, was a personal trainer in the area where I grew up, and I was trying to play lacrosse in high school, and I was a little shrimp, still am, but even more so of a shrimpy back then. And so I wanted to work out a little bit to just try and make myself a better athlete. And I was never really a gym guy. But anyway, I started working with Mike Bazillion. And through the personal training, this was back in high school, we kind of just struck up a friendship. He was a cool guy. I liked the training he was doing. It definitely wasn't CrossFit, but he was into a lot more of the functional stuff. And so we stayed friends after I graduated high school and started training together. And he really got into the whole kettlebell scene. And if anyone can remember back to like Pavel, he had this book, this guy, Pavel Tusolini, came out with this book. I think that's how you pronounce his last name.
Yeah, like Tatsuine or something.
Yeah, he was a bad mother, right?
Oh,
and he had this book called Power to the People. And then there was another one called The Naked Warrior. And it was actually had some really cool stuff in it, and it was basically just like how to kick your ass with your body weight and kettlebell exercises. And Mike and I really got into that whole kettlebell scene, and we did a couple of kettlebell competitions. And kettlebell competitions, if anybody has ever done them, my hat's off to those guys, because you do about 3 different things. And, one of the tests was like a 5-minute max rep snatch test with a kettlebell. What a freaking nightmare.
That sounds awful.
You know, like the nice thing about CrossFit, I'll tell you, is like as miserable as it can be, there's always something new to go look for, you know?
Yeah.
And the kettlebell guys are like, nah, we're hard. You're just gonna have to suck on this giant piece of, you know, steel for 5 minutes. Anyway, so through the CrossFit scene, we stumbled on a website, or not CrossFit, the kettlebell scene, we stumbled on a website called Jim Jones.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, remember Jim? Because at that time, the movie The 300. When did that movie come out?
Exactly.
The 300
Dude,
movie.
I posted about this the other day. Remember I did this workout I did the 300 workout in my basement.
Yeah. So and back then, like I did that workout 7 days a week.
Yeah, me too. At the Queens at university, I did it all the time.
Everyone watched 300 and is like, I want to look like Gerard.
Exactly.
Butler.
Yeah, and what we really needed was
that
like
guy.
we needed post-production and steroids.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so that was 2007. So I remember that 300 workout. I did that thing. We should do that again. But and through that we stumbled on Jim Jones, which was run by Mark Twight at the time. I think it was a gym out in Utah, and he had trained some of those 300 guys, and they looked all jacked. And I still don't look like that, and I've been doing CrossFit for 12 years. So clearly I've done something. My initial goal, still haven't made it happen. But Mark Twight had trained with Coach Greg Glassman early on, and he's a really very accomplished and world-renowned climber, Mark Twight. So that's how we stumbled on CrossFit, was through that Jim Jones website. And my buddy Mike said, hey, found this CrossFit website. You should try some of these workouts. And we did. We gave him a shot. And, you know, I learned 90% of what I knew at that time about CrossFit from the internet, watching people like Zach Pine and Chris Spieler, Adrian Bosman, Pat Barber, those guys. And I remember when I really decided I wanted to do CrossFit, there was this old video, and I think it has like a remix of the Strokes song. But anyway, or no, maybe it's a Billy Idol song. But anyway, it was Greg Amundsen doing Heavy Fran, you know, and he looks like he ate all of the 300 Spartans. You know, the dude was just amazing to watch. And he does this workout, Heavy Fran, in 4 minutes. And I remember watching that video and I said, I want to be that guy. And that's what got me to do CrossFit. And again, still hasn't happened. I look like Greg Amundsen's left thigh.
But you could do Heavy Fran in 4 minutes though, probably.
Yeah, I could probably, I don't know, maybe now.
Yeah.
If I can get that bar to my shoulders, cleaning it might be the hard part. But yeah, I saw that video, and that's when I really got into CrossFit. So this was probably 2007, moving into 2008 when I took my 2008 when I took my level 1. My buddy Mike Bazillion and we drove all the way out to Ann Arbor, Michigan, which was owned by Doug Chapman at the time, who was a CrossFit OG. Mm-hmm. And at that seminar, there were all kinds of people out there. Dave Castro was out there. Tony Budding was out there. For those of you who are new to CrossFit, he had a lot to do with the media team early on. Adrian Bosman was there. Joe DeGain, who is a mentor to all three of us and a colleague of ours in seminar staff, he was interning at that seminar.
Oh, wow.
So just like a lot of people, who were just getting started, I took that seminar, and Katie Henniger took that seminar. Now Katie and Rogue, or Katie and Bill, who own Rogue Fitness, and they're doing all kinds of badass stuff and now making PPE, transition from a fitness equipment company to
crazy.
So, I mean, they started off making like ring straps in their living room and shit and pull-up bars. So it's like, that's who I took my seminar with. And that's not a brag, but it's just like, it's crazy to see how far it's come. Because at that time,
you were young, man. Like, how old were you?
Probably like 6 or 7 years old.
No, because
you said you were in high school playing playing lacrosse.
High school was a little bit earlier than when Mike and I found CrossFit. So, like when we stumbled on it in 2006, 2007, I was just turning 20.
Yeah, and I think I remember Dave saying that you were one of the youngest ever to take the seminar, right?
Oh, maybe he said that. I don't know, because I took it when I was 20. At that time, I don't think I was the youngest. Maybe at that time I was.
Yeah, at that time, right? Because there wasn't like that many. They weren't doing that many seminars in 2007, 2008.
Yeah, I mean, because I had to drive I drove through Canada, actually. That was my first time in Canada. I drove from Massachusetts through Canada down into Michigan, because there was, there were seminars like down at Virginia Beach. out on the West Coast and then out in Michigan. So there weren't like a ton on the East Coast.
And what was like your mindset there when you were just like, I want to take this seminar and get into CrossFit? Like you said, you started out down the road because you wanted to train for lacrosse, but
yeah,
like, did you have a sense that it doesn't sound like you had a sense that there was any competitions happening or anything like that,
no.
like that this could have been a coaching career for you? Like what was going through your head?
Yeah. So at the time I just kind of liked fitness and, you know, I figured I was just kind of into it, and my buddy Mike was pretty jazzed up about doing a level 1. And I was kind of like, I didn't have any idea to coach or compete. And so I was just kind of like, well, shit, I'll go check out this level 1. Seems kind of fun. I like CrossFit. But I mean, for me at that time, it was just vanity fit, man. I wanted to look good to just pick up chicks.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted a 6-pack and I wanted some, you know, definition. That was seriously straight up it. So when I rolled into my level 1, I mean, I was going out there for no other reason, my own personal enrichment. And it had a pretty positive effect on me, which is cool. But yeah, I was like, I wanted to learn more about CrossFit. You know, I was kind of into fitness. I had never been a real gym guy before that. But yeah, so just no plans beyond that day of strolling into my level 1. Had a pretty awesome weekend.
That's cool.
So was it after that weekend then that you sought out an actual affiliate, or did you already go to a CrossFit gym at that point?
So I hadn't really been in an affiliate. And Mike, we were coaching some CrossFit classes, but I don't believe that he was affiliated at the time. You know, we were just kind of doing it and still figuring it out. And like I said, there was a lot we didn't understand about it. So after I left that level 1, I was in college. So I was doing a lot of my workouts just in the gym at the university, and or in I did so many workouts in my living room of my apartment. I'll never, you know, it's like I used to watch, you know,
full
CrossFit
circle,
videos.
Man.
Full circle, man. I'm back in my living room, my basement right now working out. You know, it's like, and it's funny to me because my roommate used to think I was insane because I would get up early and I'd watch like a kettlebell YouTube video and I'd work out to it, or I'd watch a CrossFit video and work out to it in my living room, like an insane person. And I had like a 35-pound kettlebell. And I remember how this thing would the 35-pound kettlebell would just bury my shit into the ground every morning before class. And sometimes I started going into the college gym. And at that time, you know, there was like 1 or 2 other people in the area doing CrossFit. And, you know, I saw this one guy come into the gym one day and he pulled rings out of his bag. And I kind of like, we locked eyes, you know, like star-crossed lovers. And I gave him like one of those little chin ups, like, yeah, head nods, like, yeah, bro, like CrossFit, you know? And so I started training with this kid. I don't remember his name, but that was really cool. So yeah, no affiliate really yet for me. And when I was home from college, my buddy Brandon and I, we would train out of a local fitness center, Globo gym, man. And then we'd run around that place in board shorts, barefoot, and get yelled at by the managers all the time. But it was fun. Just different, just so different from how prevalent it is now. And, you know, like I said, at that time, going to my level 1, in my mind, it was like, hey, this is really cool. I'm going to help take care of my body. But it's like, in my head, I was like, no one's ever going to find out about this. Like, I remember having numerous conversations. I was like, it's just going to be us, man. Me and you, bro, in the garage, taking on the world, working out, dropping weights, barefoot, you know? And it was like, because that's what you did back then. You did CrossFit barefoot.
Yeah.
I don't know why. You wore board shorts and you went barefoot. I have no idea why.
I mean, I remember. Sorry, go ahead, PT.
I was just going to say, like, I came in like 2011, and I think the barefoot movement was just leaving. Like, people were starting to make fun of people with the toe shoes.
Well, because the Nanos came out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, you know, and there were some other shoes that worked. Like, a lot of people were wearing, like,
Innovate.
Puma Kings. Innovate was kicking around.
Pumas.
You know, but someone once said to me, you know, they said, imagine, because I wore those Vibram 5 fingers. Yeah, and they were cool until the day I moved to the city and I ran an 800 on concrete with them.
Oh,
and it felt like it felt like you were running on lava. But someone once said to me, they said, imagine somebody that you think is the sexiest person in the world. Doesn't matter, whoever it is. Imagine the hottest, sexiest person you could think of. And I did. And then they said, now imagine I'm wearing Vibram 5 fingers. And I was like, oh shit. And I went home and threw them out.
That's a
like
good
that.
exercise, good mental exercise to come to that realization.
Yeah. And so then I started wearing Innovates, and I was one of those people who early on wore 2 different color shoes. I wore one blue Innovate on the left one. So I went from an ugly pair of shoes to do another stupid thing with my shoes.
I know some guys who still do that.
Yeah, I do too.
Chris
Does
Harris.
Pete do that? Oh yeah, Christian does.
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, but man,
think-
he looks so good all the time, and he's jacked
Doesn't
out of
matter.
his mind.
We're not looking at his feet.
No,
Nobody's looking at his feet.
not when you got filet mignons like that strapped to your chest, boy. That's so funny. Yeah, he does do the different color shoes. Travis Mayer does too, I think.
Yeah, I think Travis
really?
is done doing that. He's done with that.
He's over it.
He's past it. Yeah.
But so where was I? I don't know. Yeah, so that was the impetus for level one. Nothing crazy, but I did. The level one had a big impact on me. Like, I imagine you guys can speak similarly to this because obviously you left the level one and then wanted to pursue a career as a seminar staff trainer. And I left my level one and I was like, fuck yeah, CrossFit and zone. And I went home and I was in college and I zoned like peanut butter and jelly and bow tie pasta and avocado and eggs because that's all, and beer.
And don't you still tell that story to this day in your level one?
Hell yeah. I always talk about that in the nutrition lecture, because it was true. I remember it so distinctly. Like I left and I was like, yeah, you got to zone, man. And I went back home and it was so easy to zone because I ate like a college kid. So it was so simple, but it helped. And it taught me a lot about food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you say when you guys are working out, just you and your buddy there, and you never expected that CrossFit, like anyone else would know what CrossFit is. I remember when I first found the website, I just thought I had a firefighter neighbor tell me about it. And he was just like, hey, there's some guys at the fire hall doing this, like following this website. You should check it out. I was like, okay, cool. Like he knew I was into working out. My dad had a garage gym and stuff. And then I looked at it. I was like, oh, this is what the military guys are doing. Like this is
Yeah.
the shit right here. Like, you see the hero workouts pop up. I was like, this is badass. I'm going to follow this and no one else is going to find out. I'll be the fittest guy around. Like it'll stay underground and I'll have the advantage.
Yeah. That's exactly, I thought the same exact thing.
Oh man.
So James,
No, go.
I was gonna say there's still no like mention of competition, in your little story there, or your upbringing in the CrossFit world, and like
we're getting there.
I mean, competition does. I know, but I just mean I want to get you there because competition kind of defined you for a little while, right? Like, I mean, from the outside, maybe not to you personally because you were defined by other things, but I mean, James Hobart was a well-known guy because of being on these teams and winning the CrossFit games on the team and then going individual, qualifying as an individual, going to the games in 2014.
It's a good year, baby.
Good year. And then winning and then, moving and then living with Rich and all that stuff. And so where does the competition come into play?
Yeah, I mean, what I did like about it when I started, I liked that it was competitive. And for the it's like it kind of reminded me of sports in that way. I think a lot of people who played sports like that about CrossFit. You could be competitive with it, but I didn't really even think about competing until I don't know, early 2009, and that happened when I was down. Now I'd moved to Boston, finished undergrad, and I was going to law school in Boston. I was training at CrossFit Boston, and I was working there. And I met Patrick Cummings, who would work for various media companies and equipment companies. And I was on a podcast. He does his own podcast now, but I was on a podcast with him recently. But anyway, I met Patrick, and because he was doing some media creation in CrossFit, he had opportunities to just see a lot of other competitors and people compete. And I remember Patrick just came up to me and he's like, hey, there's this competition out at CrossFit New England. He's like, I think you should go do it. I think you'll do pretty well. And in my head, I was like, nah, man, I suck. And I was like, I would train with guys. And at that time, I think in CrossFit, if you had like a standout skill or strength, you were so far ahead of everybody else in terms of fitness. Like you could not be well-rounded and have a super strength and crush people in workouts. Like for example, like if you were strong or if you had like one gymnastics, if you could do double unders back in 2009, you were the best CrossFitter in the world. People just sucked at them so bad, man, because no one had been doing double unders for that long. But so I went out and we did a competition. I went out there with Neil Thompson, who was the owner of CrossFit Boston, and we did a competition out at CrossFit New England. And I did pretty well. Like I didn't win, but there were some other like fit guys out there who had like been posting times to like the CrossFit.com leaderboard and who were kind of fit in the area. And I did pretty well. And so from there, a couple people at the gym, CrossFit Boston, kind of urged me to go train for the 2009 sanctionals or sectionals back then and try and make it to the games. And I went out there with no idea what was going to happen. No aspirations other than just to like throw down in my Vans and my boxers and have fun, like, and I won. My training partner at the time was Stacy Kroon, and we both won that sectional in 2009 and ended up going to the games. And that right there.
That was in the parking lot. That was in
the parking lot at CrossFit Albany. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was nuts. We rode one of the events, we rode a 2K. There was this 10 down to 1 really cool chipper. It'd be fun to do it now because people are so fit and strong. But it was 10 down to 1 of like kettlebell swings, power cleans at 155, which might as well be 275. Back then, 155 was like, how am I even gonna get this shit to my shoulders? Wow. And then it was pull-ups. And the reason I won that workout was because I was the only person there that could do butterfly pull-ups. And I just smashed the pull-ups. And there was like I said, I was a one-trick pony. I had one cool skill, but it like really helped me in that workout. Because I think every single clean was a single. And then I went to the games. Yeah, I went to the games in 2009.
Is that the year where they did the Every Second Counts documentary?
That was 2008.
2008, the year before.
That was the year before, yeah. I wish I had went out in 2008. And I wish I went out in 2007 because I remember them posting the PDF flyer. At the time it was super cool, but it was like this little, janky PDF flyer on CrossFit.com. And I was like, oh, cool, the CrossFit Games, So there were guys
just sign up.
Yeah, and because, at that time, there was no like games website or like no media out there for it. So you weren't following people on like social media. You would just see who posted on CrossFit.com and you would see their time. And then you'd be like, that's bullshit. Who is this Chris Spieler guy doing Annie in 3 minutes? Like he's a fucking liar. And now Chris Spieler had an epic, legendary games career. And then, you'd see other people out there like,
Nico Sallow probably, no?
No, not yet. But you saw some of your Canadian brethren up there, James Fitzgerald.
Yeah, Fitzgerald.
And you saw Brett Marshall.
Yeah.
And Brett Marshall would put up scores that were like, oh my God. I mean, that dude, like he basically invented the butterfly pull-up because I don't remember why. He said, I think once because he couldn't do kipping pull-ups or something like that. But anyway, so that's where that's how you get tuned into it. That's how you knew the guys to follow and beat and try and compete with. So that's where you were. You were on CrossFit.com every day, scrubbing the comments to be like, what's the time I got to chase? What did Spiel get on this one? Or, what did Pat Barber, whoever got on this one? You just try and chase those times. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's kind of what got me into competing. I had no desire ever until someone came along and said, hey, I think you'd be all right at this. And I was okay at it. I went out to the games in 2009 and I sucked so bad. They had cuts back then. I got cut after the second event. It was like a trail run and then a heavy deadlift. Two of my worst. I don't think I trained either of those things all year. And
the one that they repeated.
Is that the repeat one
in 2016? Yeah.
Similar, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. So like, look, 2009, you go to the games. 2010, you're at the games on a team.
No, individual 2010.
No? Individual again?
Yeah, because we had another little sectionals out at Albany, and I smoke checked Maliolo out there.
Woo!
And that's when Austin Maliolo and I kind of became friends, and he was running around in skins.
So you beat Maliolo in 2010. You also beat him individually in 2014. When has he beaten you at regionals individually?
At regionals, never. But I will say this: Austin's had far better games finishes than I'll ever have. I think he has like 2 or 3 top 10 finishes. So
yeah, he definitely does. I remember when they introduced him at the level 1. I don't know if I told you that story, but Joe DeGane was like introducing you guys in the back, and this is right after you had won the games on New England. So they're like, oh, James Hobart, part of the Affiliate Cup winners, New England, and Austin Malleolo finished 8th at the CrossFit Games. And when I heard that, I like looked back and I was like trying to figure out in the line of people, who was he talking about? Couldn't be that little guy. There's no chance. There's no chance it was that little guy who finished 8th at the Games. And then he like lifted up his hand. And I'm like, wow, that guy's good at CrossFit, so you don't have to be huge. I'm like, yeah, good to know.
Cool. Yeah. Because in pictures, he looked. Yeah, that people always say that, man. I remember one, even to Austin, they walk up to him at seminars or other games athletes at seminars, and the guys will walk up and they'll like size you up and they'll be like, "You're a lot smaller than I thought you'd be." You know, like, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I don't know if that happens with other athletes in the world, but I mean, CrossFit athletes, as far as, you know, fitness type, sport type athletes, are definitely smaller. You know, there's not like a lot of 6'5" juggernauts walking around.
Yeah, it's definitely like that's the feeling I had in 2012 when I was there, and I got to like meet, you know, like Jason Khalipa, and I got to like see Rich Froning in real life. And I remember being underwhelmed by Rich's size, but I remember thinking, Khalipa, like, he's actually huge.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's a meatball, man.
Like, he was actually back then. It's like, okay, everyone kind of looks bigger on camera. This guy's a gorilla.
Yeah, he is. He is a big dude.
So you went to the games like 10 years in a row. What is it?
I wish. I wanted to make it 10. I screwed that up, but it's okay. I went.
We'll blame Dave for programming that ramp.
Both team and individual. I think I went 8 times. So 09, 10, both individual. 11, 12 were team. 13 was team. 14 individual. 15, 16 team. So yeah, 8 times. 8 times.
8 times in 3 affiliate cups.
Yeah, it was. It's like I said. You know, it's. We were watching. I said this in somebody the other day. We were watching. You guys see the movie Ford versus Ferrari?
No, I haven't watched.
You guys don't care about cars. But it's you don't give.
I just started getting into F1.
Oh well, I mean, you guys have a great F1 race up in Canada. But anyway, it was just watching this movie Ford versus Ferrari. It was at a time in car sports history when the sport was really rolling. You know, it was like NASCAR was getting the ball rolling, and international, like long distance, Le Mans, was getting the ball rolling. And what's interesting about this movie is in the movie, like, you hear all these names of like big sports car manufacturers now, or like really big names in the sports car community, but they all knew each other back then. And I feel like to some extent I got into CrossFit like at that similar time. Mm-hmm. And, you're fortunate, what I was saying my wife and I were watching this movie, and we were watching this car movie, and I was like, what do you think people who, are in the sports car racing industry now look at this movie and they're like, oh my God, look at how old this thing is. Look at what they were doing. Look what we can do now. I was like, we're kind of at that point in CrossFit. Like, I got into CrossFit at its infancy of its competitive career. And the point of this is not saying that it was like necessarily easier, but it was like, the talent pool was so much smaller. The people doing it was so much less. The lessons learned weren't learned yet. We were still figuring those out before, it blew up like it's blown up today.
Mm-hmm. But you're still there.
I'm still here, but in a very different way.
I know what you mean, James, but it's just like, that's why it's even more impressive when you see guys that are still kind of who were there in 2009 to 2011 and that were still there in 2018, right? Like,
they evolve with it. They progress and get stronger, and they get fitter with the sport as the demands grow, rather than you see some people just get pushed out,
Yeah. And I think for me, the reason that happened was because, one, I was lucky to be around other people who were great. And two, it's like competition wasn't my only investment in CrossFit. And because of that, it's like I had the coaching aspect, the learning aspect of it. And that's the other thing, for me, I was always a coach athlete, not athlete coach. And, they always say, those who cannot do teach. And so, I knew as I was transitioning away from making competing my sole goal, teaching could replace that, and coaching could replace that. And I think I like that side of it. I shouldn't say more. I like a lot more things about the coaching side of it than the competitive side of it. But I do miss, like, a couple things from the competitive side, a lot. I just don't miss as much from the competitive side as I would from the coaching side.
What are those
Like
things?
what?
I miss the share. I know, you guys played team sports. You guys get this for a long time, and you guys both competed at the highest levels of the CrossFit, games season. I just love the shared suffering that you have with the other people training, like going through the shit with your friends and your teammates and working toward a common goal. Like, I really like that side of it. I love being competitive. Like, I love comparing myself to myself from yesterday. I love comparing myself to others. I like just going out there, win or lose, and just, fighting to see where you stand. And there are a lot of ways to do that, but I like doing that in CrossFit. And I obviously, being successful with it doesn't suck. If you're always last place competing, sure, that wears on you. But, having the sweet taste of victory a little bit really makes that a lot sweeter and nicer. So I think those are probably two of the biggest things I miss. I miss the camaraderie and, sessions we had when we were training for the games were so fun. And like I said, that shared suffering is really special, and it's hard to replace in other aspects of life.
I think that's awesome, man. It's basically you miss training really, really hard.
Yeah, and with other people, that was like training by myself. And for the people who I see train by themselves and compete at a high level, I'm blown away by that shit. Like, whatever intrinsic thing that they have, I don't have that. It's like, if I'm there with other people, sure, like, let's just work out till one of us dies. That's cool. But yeah, those people who train alone, I don't know if I have that. But yeah, the shared suffering, I'm totally into that.
I feel the same way, man. I miss classes. Like, when this whole COVID thing, we started working out at home, and like, I know PT loves working out at home, and he always talked about it. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. I'm not there yet, but this has forced me to try it. And like, dude, it took me 2 solid weeks of just forcing myself to go down into the basement and just start working out.
Doing anything.
Yeah. Doing anything. And like, this week, maybe a bit of last week, I'm finally at the point where I'm actually pushing myself and enjoying myself, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's because we're starting to get like those virtual classes up, and I'm actually joining in on the classes, but man, there's nothing like suffering beside somebody.
Yeah. And I'm the same exact way. And the virtual classes have helped. I was pretty surprised, obviously I think a lot of gyms were like, okay, this is the path forward. This is what we're going to do. But in the back of my head, I was like, these are going to suck. And I was like, we're going to do it. But I was like, this is the dumbest idea. But you know what? Now that the ball is rolling, they're so fun. I take the noon class just about every day at our affiliate. And it's like, you're talking shit to people. Like, I'll like somebody who I always want to beat. Like, I'll pin their video up. Like, I'm a total creep about it. I really like it. But yeah, I'm like that too. I'm like that
CrossFit
too.
gives you that, man. Yeah. It's the and you've always been kind of like around a bunch of other really good athletes too, right? So it's like you've never, because some people can say like, I love working out with people, but unless you're getting pushed to the best of your abilities or past that, then it's like, it's fun, but is it really the right environment for you, right? It's kind of like what we have at NCR, and we can push each other, on different things. Like, you were in New England with a bunch of savages, obviously, in the infancy of the games, and then you with Austin, training with him, and Spencer, and you guys had a crew there, and obviously with working at Reebok, and you had a bunch of people go down there all the time, and so you were always around people that either could beat you in workouts or make you push harder to beat them. And then you went and lived with Rich, right? So you were always kind of around people. When did you ever train alone?
Just before the 2009 games, when I really sucked mega. And I remember how much I didn't like it. And also I remembered, like, I got sucked into the notion of like, I would do things well and be like, oh, I do that good, I don't need to train that. But because you're not comparing yourself to anybody. And I think after that, I took a new attitude, which was like, I want to train around people who are going to beat me constantly. Because if you're whatever you're doing, doesn't matter, fitness, anything, business, I don't care. It's like, if you're always winning, and you're not setting yourself up for long-term growth. And, I can only think of a handful of workouts. Like, when I've trained with, my other friends who are games at level athletes, I can only think of a handful of workouts that I've won, and I liked being in that position. It's like I don't want to, it's like I don't want to power snatch against someone I'm going to beat. I want to power snatch against somebody like Pete. If I don't want to squat against somebody I'm stronger than, I want to squat against you. It's like I want to squat against people who I know are going to smash me, so I can really find out where is my growth, where do I stand. And I think a lot of athletes who don't do that, I think you got a short lifespan, because you can only get so good if you're only comparing yourself to yourself.
And maybe there's also something to be said about that in terms of being okay with losing once in a while, taking that as, an opportunity for growth, and then coming back and persevering the following season, for example, and trying having another go at it, despite faltering the year before.
Yeah. I think that's, is that a Rocky quote where Mick tells him, he's like, if you always fight chumps, one day you're going to wake up and be a chump yourself. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so true. It's like, you got to take that humble pie and realize, learn from your losses. Don't ruminate in them. Don't sit there and be like, oh, woe is me. But you got to learn from those losses and be like, okay, well, what can I do better for next time? And I think if you can find people who can do that and find people who can consistently train with others who can challenge them, man, that's a mega recipe for success in anything you do. I don't care what it is.
Anything you do, especially parallel can be made to coaching too, right? I mean, we've been around coaches that are better than us since the beginning of getting on staff, right? So it's just that just pushes you to be better. I want you to talk about it a little bit because when you kind of stopped competing or slowed down your competition, or maybe it wasn't necessarily a huge focus for you, I think that's about when you bought into One Nation and CrossFit Boston, right?
Yeah.
Around the same time. So you basically, quote unquote, retire from competition and then take on a little bit of a bigger role in terms of like in the community, in terms of like an affiliate owner and coach. You were always coaching, but we could agree coaching on the weekends at a level 1 is different than coaching in your affiliate. So
yeah,
and you weren't necessarily coaching an affiliate. So talk about like the transition between I compete and train Monday to Friday all day, every day with Rich. I go do, level 1s on the weekends, and then I just do that for 52 weeks, as opposed to I try and stay as fit as I can while being in my affiliate, making sure it runs successfully, and coaching classes, get to know my people.
Yeah, I think it's a cool thing to talk about, at least from my perspective it is, because I don't think this is something I handled terribly well. And I think originally I just went at it with the wrong, I went at it with the wrong attitude. And my attitude was like, okay, I'm done with competing now. Let's close that chapter of the book and let's replace everything I was doing with competing with coaching. And I think I forced myself to try to make that change in a way that was like too fast or unnatural. But generally what I did is, I had this attitude of like, if I'm not going to be training 40 hours a week, I got to replace that with something. And for me, the skill set I had a pretty, I had wanted to coach more in an affiliate. I had thought about opening affiliates or buying affiliates. So, when I decided to stop competing, it was really funny. I came home and at that time, Reebok, the world headquarters, their CrossFit gym was still down in Canton, Massachusetts before they moved into the city. So I came back home and I was like, well, all right, I'll coach at Reebok and I'll do seminars on the weekends and we'll see how that goes. And it was weird because the coaching was good and I loved coaching classes. But what happened, like I had turned some switch or made some decision in my head where I was coaching and still doing seminars the weekend. I didn't work out, I think, when I decided to quote unquote retire after the games. I don't think I worked out for 4 months, and it was like, I would be like, you know what, I got to work out. And I would start a class and I would quit workouts constantly. And it was a really weird thing for me because it was like I had this huge treasure trove of CrossFit, competition skills and competing skills and fitness skills that I had built up for almost a decade. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm not going to use any of those anymore. That's not to say that the things I learned as an athlete didn't help me coach, but I was using such a fraction of that skill set. I was like, I almost didn't know what to do with myself. So it was funny because like I was coaching and I loved coaching, but as far as like my own personal training, I had no idea what to do with it anymore. And I kind of kept looking for like, all right, well, you know what? If I'm not going to compete, I have this extra time. Maybe I need to coach more. So I would coach more. And it was like, well, maybe I need to, be more involved in my affiliates. So I started talking to Austin about being involved with CrossFit One Nation, and a really cool opportunity came up for me to buy into CrossFit Boston, which we were going to purchase and we now own. And I own that with Austin Maliolo and another partner of ours, Juan Carlos Del Rio. And, that's what led me to doing that, was this desire to be like, all right, well, if I'm not going to be competitive in fitness anymore, I want to be a competitive business person. I want to be a competitive coach. Like I want to be the best coach. I want to run the best affiliate. So I tried to, to some extent use that to replace, like you said, 40 hours a week of competing and that satisfaction I got from competing. And I tried to use coaching to fill that in, which to some extent I think it helped. Like I love coaching. It's one of the most rewarding things I could do. But I think I just went about it in a way that was so aggressive, just to be like, I'm not going to compete anymore. It was like a mistake to attack it like that.
So you went from like, having a goal and having something to train for to basically, if for 10 years, your goal is to go to the CrossFit Games and compete, and then you stop doing that, then you kind of forget that why was I training in the first place, even before competing? Because I think I remember when we were talking about the demo team before we both accepted it.
Yeah.
Remember? And we were both kind of like, are you training right now? Like, are you fit? Like, yeah, decent. And like, well, what if we just say yes to the demo team? That'll give us a reason to train, right? So it's like kind of the same thing. Is it bad to always think that you need something to train for to actually train? Or how do you get out of that? How do you get to just, hey, I'm just going to train hard because I like training?
Yeah. Yeah. It's 100% been a learning experience for me. And because my attitude was, unless you're going to train to go to the games, this is what it turned into for me. I first started doing CrossFit because I liked how my body felt, and then I liked the community that I was in. And then I started training. The more success that I achieved in competing, I started training because I was like, if you're not training to win the CrossFit Games, what the fuck are you even doing? Which is weird, right? Because in the level one, which I worked on the level one staff throughout the time I competed, and I believed what I said, but for me personally, I didn't believe it. But in the seminars, you'd be like, hey, we train not to go to the CrossFit Games, but because we believe this is going to give you a better quality of life. And I no shit believed that then, and I believe that now. I saw it firsthand with numerous people at the level one. I've seen it firsthand with my mother, just how consistent fitness, scaled, not scaled, 3 times a week, 5 times a week, will change the quality of your life for the better. No doubt in my mind. I got so wrapped in the idea of like, for me personally, like if you're not training to win the games, why even show up? And so when I stepped away from competing and then just tried to start training again, that kept popping into my head. I'd be in the middle of a workout. I'd be like, fuck, this hurts. Why am I doing this? I'm not going to win the games. What's the point? And I think, if you make something that's that extrinsic or has that kind of extrinsic value, once you make that your sole reason for doing a certain thing, it's hard to find motivation elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And, like the last 3 years has been rewiring myself to remember, like, I train because when I train, I feel better. I'm a nicer guy. My wife told me, she said, you're grumpy when you don't train. And she's right. It's like after I train, I come upstairs, I'm smiles ear, from ear to ear. And I'm like just a nicer person, and I feel better and I sleep better, and just all the stuff that we talk about from to our athletes, that we tell our athletes every day in our affiliates, like it still works on me too. But it's taken a long time to rewire myself to get past that. Like, I still have abs. What the mean? I don't need to fucking do Helen. Like, I still look all right. I still feel pretty fit. I can still beat that guy over there. Like, I don't need to work out today. So it's taken a while to get out of that mentality. And it's so funny how quickly you realize the good advice you give everyone else, but don't follow yourself. And, that's been as positive as coaching is for me, behind the scenes, it's been like a slow grind to like get back to that point where, hey, it's okay if you train a lot or a little, and the goal is not to go to the CrossFit Games.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's taken me a long time to get there.
It's cool you
Think about
share.
how valuable.
Sorry, I was going to say it's cool you share that struggle, because to a certain extent, like maybe on a different level, a lot of people, our members, experience, you know, certain versions of that struggle. You know, how many times have you seen a member, you know, leave the gym because they needed a break from CrossFit, and then they come back, you know, maybe a couple months later, or maybe even takes a couple of years for them to sort of fall back in love with it. And I think if, you know, you can take those lessons and you can, just like you did there, or you know, find a lesson to be learned and communicate that to your athletes, and sort of let them know that, you know, you've been through the same thing, through that experience. They don't have to have it as sort of an all or nothing deal, you know, and you can use CrossFit as, you know, a healthy habit versus something that'll kind of grind you down and wear you away.
Yeah, I like
think of how
healthy
valuable
habit is
that
a
is
nice
right
way
now,
to say it. Yeah, man. And it's so funny. And I know you guys have probably gone through something similar, you know, it's like, and the other thing is, like, real life happens. Like, I think a lot of people forget, like, to train at the games level, you got to make a lot of sacrifices. It's just like any full-time job you want to be great at, you know, you got to take time away from yourself and your family and sleep and other comforts. Like, you got to make sacrifices to do it well. And the best athletes now talk about that. And it's definitely a transition to move out of that, you know, move out of that mindset to a different mindset, or prioritize other things, whether it be families or businesses, or I don't know, even yourself. But I like that. Yeah. Healthy habit. Someone asked me recently, they're like, what good do you think comes out of the COVID crisis? And I said, well, you know what? I hope it makes people realize how easy it is to fold, you know, and I don't like these like corny terms, but like self-care, but it's an important, you know, it's an important term. I don't want to be a tough guy about it, but it's important to, like, I fold self-care into like your daily life. Like, everybody wakes up and you go, like, brush your teeth. Like, you got a morning routine.
Mm-hmm.
It's involuntary. You guys just do whatever it is. You guys just go do it.
Maybe not nowadays during COVID, APT. It's
I keep forgetting to brush my teeth.
Yeah.
I haven't showered in 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, my toenails are 4 inches long, man.
But go on. I know what you're saying.
No, yeah. And so one of the good things I see coming out of this is I see people realize how easy it is and fun it is to stay fit at home, and what they can do to stay fit at home, and just roll that into their life, you know. And it's not, the fitness is not defining of them as a person. It's just part of what they do. You know, you don't wake up and tell people like, oh, I'm a toothbrusher, I brushed my teeth today. Like, no one says that. And it's like the same thing. It's like, fitness is just what you do. I wake up, I brush my teeth, I do 3 rounds of 50 air squats and 25 push-ups, and then I'm downstairs, you know, making the kids breakfast. I don't have kids, but I know PT does, and you do Pete, so that's probably what you guys do. Something like that.
Something around there.
But yeah, so I think there's some good, like you said, a healthy habit that just kind of rolls into their life, and it's just part of what they do in their everyday routine. I think that's cool. I see that happening more.
So is that sort of the mindset you're taking now? Is it safe to say that nowadays it's a healthy habit for you, or you're trying to make it one?
Yeah, man, I try to make it one, and like all habits, it's a practice. You know, I was telling Cassandra, or not telling her, she bared witness to a little temper tantrum I had the other day. And I went downstairs and wasn't feeling good and was going to lift, and I couldn't lift the weight that I felt like I should be able to lift. And I threw a temper tantrum. Through the fuck this weight. This is stupid. Why should I even work out? What's the point? Went upstairs. She's like, are you done working out? And I was like, yeah, I'm not working out today. And I sat upstairs, and literally I sat at the kitchen table and just had like a debate with 4 different versions of myself about why I should go work out. And and finally it was like, you just go downstairs and you're going to get on the assault bike and you're just going to start moving. And whatever happens next, you're just going to go down there and just start moving. And of course, I got, it took 20 minutes to do this, and Cassandra had finished her workout, and I went downstairs and I just got on that bike, and I think I biked and did burpees and rode until I was miserable. But after that, I felt great. So it's a healthier habit. I think I'm learning how to reappreciate it in a way that's sustainable, but it's not perfect. It's not a perfect practice. You know, we all have our days.
Do you think that's something relatable? Like, do you think people listen to that like mindset, and I know exactly what you're saying, and the constant debate of like hitting a second workout or even just working out. And it's always like, just do it, you bitch. Like, you'll feel good after. Just do it. Like, no, I don't feel like it. Like, what if I don't go hard? Or whatever. You know, you think people listen to that and they have kind of the same debate in their heads, or them it's just like, no, it's just, I'm gonna move, I'm gonna sweat, I'm gonna feel good after. It's not a debate of like, I need to go hard, I need to push myself, I need to feel like the workout made me better, right?
Yeah.
And like,
I think everybody's probably has their own thing, what their own little debate of what that is. I think there are a lot of people who do it better than others, Austin. He's such a good guy at routines. Like, he's such a good routine dude, and he's so good at just
big
being someone who's
guy.
like big routine, posts about it all the time. but he's also just someone who's like, all right, we're just gonna do this. He's really good at action, without reason. And it's a trait I admire in a lot of people. And it's funny, throughout my career, I've learned little things from everybody I've trained with. And the things I always find that what I've taken from them is not always what you'd expect. Like, for example, I think one of the coolest things I learned from training with Rich, this was like multiple years of training with, arguably, I think the most influential athlete in CrossFit. And, one of the fittest individuals in CrossFit ever. Well, what I learned from Rich was, I remember he used to say, like, just get out there and do something. And that way you've at least done something. He's like, doesn't matter what it is, just get out there and move. You've done something. And I remember he said that to me once. I forgot what we were talking about. I've never forgot that, because it's true. You go out there, you do something. For us, our something is fitness. For someone else, it could, or CrossFit. For someone else, it could be a walk. For someone else, I don't know, whatever it is. You just go do something physical. And then it's true. You finish and you're like, man, at least I did something today. Mm-hmm. And I think the more you can nurture that, the stronger that feeling gets. I don't think everybody has that same debate, but they have that debate with something. We all have that debate. There's something positive in our life that affects us, and we kind of have a struggle with doing it, or why we should do it. Like, all of us have that one good habit that we know is good for us, that we like doing, but there is sometimes a conflict inside of why we shouldn't do it.
It's just not every habit makes you finish lying on the floor dying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and not every workout ends that way.
It's like reading a book, right? It's like, no.
Yeah. But I think when you think about reactions to CrossFit and the inner struggle that we have, like, those things that go through those thoughts that go through our head, we relate to one another because we're in very similar situations, but those reactions are innately human.
Yeah,
and
right.
People on all different levels, whether or not we're measuring against ourselves, or I'm measuring against you, PT, or James, someone else might be looking at us or James and saying, what the fuck's the point? I can't power clean 225.
Yeah.
And then, but the idea is not to do that. It's not to compare yourself against James or PT. If I compared myself to you and your back squat every day, PT, I'd fucking give up. But I'm sure some people, wake up in the morning and they're like, oh, what's the point? I'm never going to be as good as my coach or the other person that they're chasing. And I think that lesson, holds firm no matter your situation.
I think what we're talking about right now is super valuable, especially in these times, right? And James, from your point of view, like, I know you've been on a bunch of podcasts talking about your virtual classes and how to stay engaged and how to, like, make sure that your affiliate is still you're still having some face-to-face time with all your athletes. And so how do you find, like, how do you make sure that your athletes right now are staying motivated, and how do you convey the guys, you'll feel better if you work out, get this done, even at home or on the virtual class? Like, what are you doing? What are the steps that you're doing for your affiliates to make sure that happens?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I think it's a really good question. And I'm going to try and, I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm going to try and frame it in a slightly different way. I think the first thing to do is remember, what is, know your damn role as a fitness coach. And what I mean by that is, I think if your goal as an affiliate owner right now who's coaching virtual classes is to go out there and entertain people constantly and make, you know, and convince them that life isn't a little bit tougher and harder because of everything that's going on with quarantine, or solve all their problems. You're biting off more than you can chew. You know, and I think the more I've thought about this and the more I see other gyms doing this well, I think to myself, all right, what is it that we offered people when they came into class? Okay. At the fundamental level, it's an hour long of fitness, right? And you guys said you worked with Jason Ackerman recently, and it's to offer them through fitness a best hour of their day. Okay. So that's the fundamental thing. How do I carry that over to a virtual class? You know, how do I offer them a best hour of fitness in a virtual class? And I think if you can take that approach to it, you know, you can still do what you do very well. Yes, the medium has changed. There's not the handshakes, the high fives, and the chest bumps. But man, I've seen people still be really engaged and happy because they wanted fitness then. And when they're just hanging out in their homes now, you know, dealing with whatever they got going on, they're going to still want fitness now. And we are the ones that deliver that to them. So we should fundamentally still just be doing that and find a way to do that as best as possible. And I think if as coaches, we can go out there and prioritize that, everything else gets a little bit easier. I certainly think you can do the other stuff. You know, we started doing just once a week. We started doing, we did a Thirsty Thursday beer social hour last week. It was a pretty big hit. And then this week we're going to do a trivia night, which will be pretty fun. And I think that stuff can be useful to provide, again, kind of replace some of that community feel. But I'll go back to the fact that, you know, what makes the community feel happen in the gym is that we've all had this shared suffering. At some level, we're all there because we want to get better. I don't know what everybody's, you know, definition of better is or what thing they want to get better, but that's why they're in your doors. And at another level, they all want to receive some sort of coaching. That's why they pay and come into a CrossFit gym. If they didn't want to receive coaching, they would, you know, be in a 24-hour fitness or just doing workouts on their own, but they're there because they want to receive coaching from you. And I think if we can, deliver and plan on delivering those things to our athletes, it sets us up to do the best we can with the virtual tools we have now. So that's how I tried to frame it was, what was I giving them there? How can I give them that now, even though the medium is different? And, you know, when I keep thinking about that I think has helped us sort of refine the process slowly and push us in the right direction. And the other thing is most CrossFit members, or at least all of us, have a handful of CrossFit members who are pretty vocal about what they want or how they think things are going. And, you know, you shouldn't listen to them 100%, but they can give you some good insight into what you could do better or what you could do differently.
That's awesome.
Does that help?
Yeah, that does. Yeah, for sure. It kind of comes back to the same struggle as like, how do you motivate people to walk through your doors when you have the physical gym, right? It's because we're kind of going through the same struggle. It's like we want people to do the virtual classes and get in there because it's just like, hey, everybody wake up. This is what life is now. You know, like if you want to work out with people, it's going to be in front of a screen. Like it kind of sucks at first, but you'll get used to it, and that's just how it is now, right? So it's like the same struggle is how do you get someone to log into their computer and work out with you and get coaching from you? Then, hey, how do you get someone to wake up at 5 a.m. and walk into your 6 a.m. class physically at the gym?
Yeah.
Debatably, this is way easier.
Yeah.
Right? It's way easier in terms of motivation. It's like, hey, dude, all you got to do is flip that screen up. Your coach is there. You have a kettlebell, a dumbbell. Cool. We'll take care of the rest, right? So it's like the struggle is kind of the same, but it's worse now because it's not, you know, you're not in front of the athlete, but you guys seem to be really killing it up in Boston with those virtual classes. So that's really fun to see.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll tell you a couple of the technical things we've done. You know, accessibility and anonymity go a long way, and the accessibility is just in the same way. It's like you don't have 10 different on-ramps before somebody can join your gym. You know, it's usually the process to someone new joining is usually pretty simple, and so. You know, we've done a lot in terms of trying to make the Zoom classes more accessible, and that, you know, we send out a nightly PDF, which breaks down the workout of the next day and it has scaling options. We assigned athletes to specific coaches for the coaches to check in on them. We've all been extra active on all of our social media if people have questions. So simple thing was we just tried to make the Zoom class really accessible. And another way to make it accessible, though gyms have done this in so many different ways. I mean, I saw a video of your gym, you posted it. It's funny how cleared out it is of gear, but to provide people gear if you have the opportunity to, because that's another way to make the fitness more accessible. So that's one of the big ones. The other one was at first, and I've seen a shift, but at first when we started doing the Zoom classes, there'd be like a third of the people that have their cameras on. All right, a week later, I'd see like a little over a third, then a half people had. Now it's like 90% of people in the class have their cameras on. And I think one, it's like we're just starved to talk to and see other people. Two, it's fun to be on camera. Three, our coaches have done a good job. If they're not giving out any valuable coaching advice, they're at least acknowledging what the hell you're doing in your tiny little screen box. So it's like, I think if you don't force people to use those cameras. I mean, it is 2020, right? We've been FaceTiming people for the last 10 years. So it's like, we're hip to doing like video relationships.
Yeah.
Kind of like we're doing now. So it's like, people will come around to it, I think. And then from there, it's just, fine tuning some stuff. We just kind of wrote out a protocol for some things we wanted to standardize with the Zoom classes. But it started with those couple things. How do we make it as easy as possible for our members to participate? And then from there, how do we make it as welcoming as possible for them?
Sounds like cool. Just a normal class.
Listening to you, I'm listening to you talk about that. I'm wondering if affiliates are dangling these cherries of trivia night and, what do you call it? Suds and something.
Yeah, we did like a beer social or whatever.
Yeah. Because they're afraid that their members aren't going to like the video workout. So it's like they've got this huge membership, and all of a sudden everything needs to go online. And we'll admit that not everyone is coming to our classes that was coming to our classes before when we had the brick and mortar. So
yeah.
Maybe the beers and the trivia is a little bit more attractive for people to get on there at first. But what you're saying is it makes a lot of sense too. And I'm wondering, are you guys doing like a free class to try and maybe give people that chance to try out the virtual style? Or
that's a cool idea. I mean, we haven't tried that yet. Most of our members who have stayed on with a membership have been pretty eager to jump in. But stuff like free virtual classes, permanent virtual class option, we started to look at this because it's like, I think if you're a reasonable affiliate owner, you have to look at what can I do now to still offer my fitness service to my members. But also, I mean, I think you got to have an eye toward the future. Like, I don't know what this looks like in 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I've looked into this and thought about this and looked at other countries, and I don't have a crystal ball, no one does. I just, in Boston, for example, they said schools are going to go back May 4th. Okay, schools go back May 4th. Let's say that. But maybe the local governments say, hey, businesses of certain sizes got to restrict membership or restrict occupancy. So, we've started to think about and talk about some of this stuff. And, I think the virtual class option, there's a way to do it really well. I think it's feasible. I don't think it'll be for everyone forever. But I think it's something we should start to look at as not just a Band-Aid, but as another function of what we do. Because, I mean, look at companies like Peloton. I know that's different from CrossFit in terms of like the coaching aspect we offer, but there's definitely something there. Like, I've watched probably, 5 or 10 Peloton classes, and I have some friends that have them. I have friends who do CrossFit regularly and have them, and they like them. So there's some version of that out there.
Or even if you can entice someone from, halfway across the world to join a class coached by, James Hobart himself,
Yeah,
I'd jump in on that class.
I'd love that. Yeah, so we're doing that on the Ham Plan. We're gonna have Spencer run a class on Friday, open to the world. So
I love it.
Be cool.
Saw that. Yeah. I saw that. We actually, fun fact, since we launched our virtual membership, we've actually had 3 brand new people join the gym.
That's really cool.
Yeah, which is interesting, which is fun. It's
and
fun.
Today we had a couple who they moved a little bit further away from the gym and stopped coming, but this allowed them to kind of come back and see the group. So it's cool.
Yeah. So there you go. And
That's it, man. I mean, it's to see the group. It's to receive you still receive the personality and coaching of Pete Shaw and Paul Tremblay, through the camera. It's just the medium's a little different. Did you guys just kind of throw a dart at a dartboard to come up with your virtual membership price? Or is that something like, because there's not a benchmark of it really in the market?
That's funny you say that, because in our conversations, that's exactly what we talked about in terms of like, there's nothing out there. The people that are offering virtual memberships right now are people who didn't pause their memberships. So they're basically handcuffed into saying like, this is what we used to charge you for in-house brick and mortar gym membership. And now we're just going to charge you the same, but you're going to be at home with 2 pieces of equipment. And the class offering obviously is less and classes aren't as long. So it's like the value is nowhere near, right? It can't be priced the same. And then we started looking at it and thinking like, hey, well, we have an opportunity to basically set a price, or to start a market where this is a membership price for a physical gym, and this is what we should be pricing, or what the value of this membership is at home. And I don't know if we probably haven't nailed it yet, and there's probably some adjustments to be done there, but we just priced it in terms of offering. We also try and price our things according to our expenses. So we imagine that, it's Pete, myself, who ends up coaching these classes. So what is our time cost? And also, so the offering, the amount of classes per day. What we did change, James, is that we made it a weekly membership instead of a monthly. Yeah, just because it's unknown and we don't know, maybe we'll get a call from the city or announcement from the city we can open up in 2 weeks, right? And then people have bought the virtual membership for a month, and we get into all this bullshit. So we made it a weekly membership for the unknown, and for the fact that like, hey, you try it, come try it for a week. There's no, because if someone really doesn't like it, to have paid for a month and not use it, that kind of sucks, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we did. So did we throw a dartboard at the price? We threw a couple dartboards.
That's really, I think your process of walking through that though is pretty clever. So yeah, I think more affiliates need to start thinking like that, and I think that's really cool.
I don't know about you guys, but we've kind of weirdly enjoyed this challenge, right, Pete?
Yeah, it's brought out the entrepreneurs in us. Again,
yeah, I feel the same way, man.
You kind of go through that phase when you first start the gym, and I mean, we're still constantly trying to grow, but at one point you kind of hit the daily routine of just operating, and you're coaching the classes that you're on the schedule, and these are your tasks and your assignments. And now it's like all of a sudden, we got to build this thing from the ground up, try and come up with ideas, and it's exciting.
Yeah. I wish the circumstance were different, but I felt the same way. And I've had a lot of conversations with my business partners and my wife about this of like, I don't want anyone to get sick, but I was like, I kind of like that we have to work this hard. I like that there's this, what seems like a monumental challenge in front of me. And I don't say that in like a glib way, like anybody whose lifestyle or, business or ability to take care of their family is in jeopardy. I don't wish that upon anyone, but my career security is probably the rockiest it's ever been, but it's like, it's invigorating to have a challenge like this and see like, okay, well, here are the tools we have. Let's move forward. Like I have appreciated that.
That's awesome. Look, James, we'll call it there.
Hell yeah.
But
hour and a half.
I just want to say that like, you guys at the Hand Plan and Austin, Spencer, yourself, like, we look up to you guys a lot, and I think it's really cool that our community will be able to hear you speak. And we're gonna have Austin later on the podcast too in a couple of days. He was really pissed that we asked you first, but I didn't send the calls.
James has an unfair advantage having that connection with the Canadian crew.
Heck yeah.
Right.
Heck
So.
Yeah.
We're gonna get Spencer
that'll be a
on,
3-hour podcast. You guys better bring like a protein shake.
Well, we're gonna get Spencer on too, and then we'll get the whole Hand Plan on like some other time.
Oh, I'd love that. We would love that, man. No, I appreciate it, guys. It's cool to learn from you guys, and it's just really nice to catch up. And, you know, like I said, with everything that's going on, just knowing that other people going through it as well isn't necessarily comforting, but it makes it a little easier.
It's that shared suffering.
Hell yeah.
Affiliate owners have that shared suffering right now, so it's cool.
In
Thanks a lot,
spades.
James.
Thank you, boys.
Peace, man.
See ya.
See ya.